Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Real Podcast with me, Natalie Barbu, back in the United States of America. It's been a little bit since I did a solo episode, so I know some things are a little bit delayed, so thank you for being patient with me. But I am here to talk about my European summer family vacation. I'm actually really proud of myself because I did vlog this entire trip, and I did a 45-minute vlog, so it's going to be a good one. Watch it while you're getting ready, while you're eating lunch, maybe before you're going to bed. Wherever you watch your YouTube videos, it's one of my favorite vlogs, and it makes me inspired to film more like travel content when I am traveling, because I do have the privilege of being able to travel a lot, and this year specifically I'm traveling a lot, and so I want to be able to create good content for you. I filmed a California vlog when I was recently in California with my friend Julie, and I'm not gonna lie, it was not my best work. I feel like I barely filmed any clips about California. I had someone comment that they needed to see more California in the vlog, and I completely agree. I did not do a great job at it, but this European vlog, you will not be disappointed. I filmed a ton of stuff. I filmed what we were doing. I filmed talking clips. I filmed us out and about. You know how sometimes for me personally, I'll vlog and I'll be like, so I'm going to do this. And then I never film what I'm doing. And then I come back and I'm like, so just got back from this, but I didn't actually film it. It's like, what's the point? So this vlog is not like that. It's actually really good. It has so many clips of what we saw, where we went. I got a lot of content, and I'm really happy for you guys to see it, or really excited for you guys to see it. So that will be going up either before or after this. I'm not really sure, but in the same week that this is up. And if you guys want an itinerary of what we did in each city and where we went, what we did, I'm posting all of that in the vlog. Like, everything is there in the description as well. All the links, everything. So that is going to be a really, really good one, and it makes me want to film more travel content. I feel like because I am someone that travels a lot, I need to take advantage of it, and I need to film more travel content. So let me know if that type of content is something that you want to see, because it's what I really enjoy filming, but I want to know if you guys like that type of content, especially if it's done well, like I think the European one was. So would love to know your comments on that. But I wanted to actually film a podcast about my European trip because I have a lot of thoughts, I have a lot of reflections, and I want to compare the United States to Europe in my very brief time there. I want to do a little comparison, and I want to know your thoughts. This is not fact. This is my opinion and my perspective, and I want to make this a discussion. So let's make this feel like a Reddit forum where like someone's asking, hey, what are your comparisons of US? What are the most obvious comparisons you've seen from the US and Europe, as someone that's traveled to both or lived in one of the two? And that's what this video is going to be. It's my response to that question. It's not a definitive guide. And yes, there are going to be generalizations made in this video, or in this podcast, I should say. So I'll take it back to kind of like what we did and where we went, in case you guys are not going to be watching the vlog. So every year my family tries to do one family vacation where we either go to another city or another country and we spend the week together. And that is such a privileged thing to say. I fully agree with that. I understand that. And I'm so, so lucky that I get to still do that with my family, especially being 28 years old. I feel like at 28, a lot of people don't even get to see their family that much, or don't get to like spend a lot of time with them. And all of the kids are grown up and we're still able to like spend time as a family. I think it's because, again, like, I'm not married, I don't have kids, my siblings aren't married and they don't have kids either, so it's a lot easier for us to do now. I'm sure my parents expected this family time to end a long time ago, but they have they decided to, or they have some children that have stayed single probably longer than they anticipated, and have not given them grandchildren yet. So because of that, we do family vacations still, which is a good part of it. But I think it's really lucky that I get to do that, and I feel very special that we get to do that too. So this family vacation, we went to Europe. We went to started out in Stockholm, Sweden. Then we flew to Vienna, and from Vienna, we actually got picked up and drove to Romania, because that is where my dad is from. So we got to see where he grew up. And then from Romania, we drove to Budapest, and then from Budapest, we drove to Vienna. So we did Stockholm, Vienna, Romania. And I say Romania because we did the western side of Romania. So we did Timișoara is what it's called. And then we got to see Arad, and we got to see like my dad's town that he grew up in, which is called Pechka, which is like a really small town there. And then we went to Budapest, and then we went to Vienna. So I got to see 4 different countries, which was so, so cool in a matter of 10 days. So a shorter trip for all that we got to see, but I think we made the most of it. And honestly, I don't think we needed more time in any of the places that we were in. I think we had enough time in each city to really like get the just like gist of it. And then we can come back and explore more, you know, if we want to. And I've never been to any of these countries before. So I was really excited because this was a first for our entire family. No one in my family has ever been to any of these countries besides obviously my dad, to Romania since he grew up there, and my dad, I guess, he's been to Hungary, but I don't think he's never been to Budapest. So or maybe he has. Him and my mom did Romania and Budapest a while ago, 20 years ago. So I guess they did that, but for the most part, it was a first for our entire family, and it was a really, really special trip because we did get to go and see where my dad grew up, and so I want to talk about that in a second, but that's kind of the overall trip of what we did. And the way that we decided on this trip is because I, last summer, bought tickets to the Eras tour in Stockholm. And this was before I knew who I was going to go with, like what the plan was. I just knew I wanted to go see Taylor Swift in Europe. And when she announced her European tour dates, I was like, I am going to one of these cities. And so I decided on Stockholm. I applied to Stockholm and Poland because I figured that those two weren't going to be flooded with Americans. And I just like got access to both of those, the pre-sales. And so I'm so glad I decided on Stockholm. Not that Poland wouldn't have been amazing, but like I am now obsessed with Stockholm, and I am going to be back next summer. Or at least in some point in the summer. I love Stockholm. It was like one of my favorite cities that I've ever been to. And that was so surprising to me because before this trip, my family and I, we were kind of like, what is there to do in Stockholm? Like, yeah, like we're excited to see it, but like, is it really that cool of a city? Like, what is there to do? Guys, if you can, add that to your list of cities that you visit. It was incredible. The people were so nice. It was so clean. It felt so safe. I went when the weather was amazing. It was like 70 degrees Fahrenheit the whole time and sunny, and it was perfect. But it just felt like such a safe, comfortable, fun city. And I loved it in the summer because it gets dark for only like 3 hours of the day. Like from like midnight to 3 a.m. is when it's dark, and then the rest of the day it's light from like 3 a.m. to like midnight. It's literally sunny outside, which is crazy because usually the sun over here sets at like 8:30 and then it doesn't get bright until like 7 a.m. So it's super different than where I live on the East Coast, but it was such a cool city. The food there was also really good, which I was kind of surprised by because I'm not going to lie, I have heard things that the Swedish food is not good, and the food that we ate there was amazing, and I was just like super impressed with the city in itself. Like public transportation was super easy. It was easy to get around everywhere. It was such a fun city. Like the restaurants were cool. There was it was lively, at least in the summer with like good weather. Like, I don't know, it was amazing. So I'm really glad that we went to Stockholm, and I did go to the Eras tour. Obviously, I went with all of my siblings, and it was such a fun experience. Like, I know I've talked about this in like previous podcast episodes, but I've definitely gotten closer with my siblings, especially post breakup. Like me and my boyfriend broke up almost 2 years ago. And so these past 2 years, I have been getting a lot closer with my family, which has honestly been super, super nice and also such a blessing. And so this concert was just really fun being able to experience it with my siblings. When I bought the tickets, I didn't know who I was going to go with. I was like, surely like some friends of mine will want to go to the Eras tour like in Sweden. That would be such a fun trip. But realistically, getting a group of 4 girls to go and plan a European trip on top of like spending money for a concert is not that realistic because I don't have as many friends as obsessed with Taylor Swift as I am. My siblings, however, or at least my sisters, love Taylor Swift as like almost as much as I do. And so I was like, perfect, like I'll definitely just be able to go with them. So at first we were going to make it like just like a sibling trip, and then my parents obviously wanted to come, and we did it like a full like family vacation. And my brother he definitely like does not know all the words or anything like that, but he does like really like Taylor Swift as well. And I was looking, he actually had his like CarPlay on today, and it was like his first mix. You know how Spotify gives you like mixes for your artists? It's like this Olivia Rodrigo mix, Billie Eilish mix, whatever. His like first mix was Taylor Swift mix. So I know that he is a true Swiftie, even if he won't fully admit it. He had a blast at the concert, and he did say that it was like an insane experience, and that was also his first concert that he's went to. He went to something small maybe like a year ago or something, but I feel like it doesn't really count as a concert. It was like a smaller thing rather than like a full-fledged concert. So I would consider this his first real concert. And it was the Eras Tour, which is like so cool. It was she had her new set. It was TTPD. Oh my gosh, you guys, like, I'm obsessed with her, and it's like unhealthy. I saw a TikTok that was saying it was Eli Rayo. Am I saying her name right? I could be saying it totally wrong. Rayo. I'm not completely sure, but she was saying how it's like on a level where she like feels crazy because like she's like constantly thinking about Taylor Swift, or she's listening to TTPD, or she's like knows all of the lore. Like it's the one celebrity where she like really knows all the lore for. And I'm like, yeah, me too. Like if someone wants to know Taylor Swift trivia, just ask me. I literally know everything, I feel like, at this point. And also it's to the point where like if someone's like, oh wait, like who's this song about? I'm like, okay, like how much time do you have? Because I need to give you like insight, or like if anyone talks poorly, like if everyone's like, oh my gosh, how many boyfriends does she have, or blah, blah, blah. I'm like, listen, enough. Like, like I like defend her, or like her and Travis Kelce. I'm like happy for her as if she's my friend. It's gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, I like need a break. Like I need to like listen to something else. But it's just so fun to be a part of a fandom and to be a part of like like a fandom. Like I think it's a lot of fun no matter who you're a fan of. And you know what, guys have been doing it for years with sports teams. Like my brother knows everything there is to know about the Miami Heat or the Dolphins. Like why can't I know everything about Taylor Swift? What's the difference, you know? So anyways, it was a ton of fun. It was like such a good night, and I mentioned this in the vlog, but I was actually really surprised by how many people around us didn't know the lyrics and like weren't singing. Like I was just like so surprised that so many people would either travel or pay money or even just like attend a concert where they're not like obsessed with the artist. Like the only concerts I go to are the ones where I know all the words, or like I just don't think it would be a fun concert. And so I like can't understand the thought of like going to a concert willingly and like not caring. Like the girls in front of me, for example, literally was sitting down the entire time. The people behind me, like the smallest man who ever lived bridge, I have a video of it if you guys want to see it on my TikTok. And everyone around me and my sister mouth was closed, like not singing along. And I'm like, that's so strange to me that like people will go to concerts that they don't care about. But anyways, to each their own. I'm sure that they still had a fun time, and it was a great concert, and it was actually so funny. So me and my siblings, we all dressed up. Like my brother was the Lover era. I was 1989. My sister was also like Speak Now / Lover, still debating on that one. And then my other sister was Fearless. And we were like some of the only people that were like really dressed up. Like I'm not kidding. 95% of people were coming in like their casual clothes. And I was just like shocked at that at the Sweden show, at least. So I feel like when you're on TikTok and social media, you see everyone dressed up, but I feel like that's just like the post that you see. Except I went to her show in Atlanta and like way more people were dressed up. So I don't know if it was just like a Stockholm show thing or what, but yeah, like not as many people as I thought were dressed up. Like we were kind of surprised by that, but it was still so much fun. It was like the best night of my life, and I am getting tickets to her show in Miami. If anyone is selling tickets for like not an exorbitant amount of money, like less than $1,000, please let me know, because I will go by myself. I don't care if a brand is watching this. Please send me. Anyways, I'm very excited about her show here in Miami because I will find a way to go. But besides that, Stockholm was amazing. We then went to Romania and got to see where my dad lived and grew up. And if you didn't know, Romania at the time was communist when he was growing up. So he was born in the 60s. He left in the 80s. Communism fell at 80 in 89, 1989, I believe. He left in 85. So he had left, went to the United States, and I'm always like very in awe of my dad's story and anyone's story that has come from a communist country or a country where your government is oppressive or you're being persecuted or whatever it might be. So my dad had come from there, from when it was communist at the time, and he had come, like he wasn't allowed to come. When you live in a communist place, obviously depending on the country and depending on the government, it can sometimes be really hard to leave. And so what happened with my dad's story is that my grandpa had actually decided to leave earlier. So the government actually did grant my grandpa a chance to leave the country. So he had to request to leave the country. They granted it to him, thankfully. They thought he would come back because it was just him going. He had a wife, he had a kid, and he had kids, and he had a job in Romania. So they thought that he would come back. And so my grandpa had left. He left to start a life in America, and this was done intentionally. And my dad and my grandma and his sister did not get to leave until like 3 or 4 years later. And when they realized that my grandpa wasn't coming back, they like kicked my dad out of school. My grandma didn't have a job anymore. So then when it was time for them to leave, they had to pretty much leave Romania with nothing in their hand. Like they had like 2 suitcases. They went through Italy. They had to live in Italy for 2 months, and they were part of this program, or I don't know if it was like a program or what it was, but they lived in this apartment, I guess, in Rome, with like 70 people per floor, like just a bunch of beds in a big room and like a communal bathroom, where they would teach them English. They would kind of help them assimilate into America before they actually got to America. And so then they came to the United States, and then my dad finished his senior year of high school in the United States because he was out of school, I think, for like a year or 2 in Romania since they had kicked him out. So that's kind of like his story in a nutshell. I'm probably butchering some details or like missing out on some things, but to think that was like my dad's life and not like a grandpa or like a great grandpa is crazy, because again, when he came to the United States, he didn't know much English besides the 2 months he learned in Italy. He was, an immigrant in this country. He had to repeat his senior year after not being in school for a while in a place where he knew no one and didn't speak the language. And that he was 18 years old then. And like my brother, for example, is 21. Like to think that he was only a little bit younger than my brother when he did all of that is just like really crazy. So it was really, really cool and really special going back to the place that he grew up and seeing it. And I am the first person to say that I come from a privileged background. I am not going to sit here and say that, I will say, actually, I'll take that back. I will say that I come from a privileged background, and not to say that like I grew up really rich or my family's super wealthy or anything like that growing up, but I will say that my parents have done really well for themselves as time has gone on. When I was growing up until maybe like high school, I would say that they definitely did well. Like they did well, but like when I was really young, like when we were still living in Miami, for example, my parents were not wealthy. Like my mom came from Honduras when she was 18 to go to school. My dad, obviously, just told you the story. They got married at 20. They had a kid at 21. They had a kid before they graduated college. They were living in like a very rundown duplex in Hollandale, Florida, and they did not have any money. My dad actually, when my parents got married, was a pizza delivery driver at Domino's. Like we passed by the Domino's here in South Florida where he was the delivery driver, and that was like the start of their marriage. And so it's not like my parents come from wealthy backgrounds, but I will say that they have given me and my siblings a much better life than they had. Like I did not grow up with, for the most part, my parents super stressed about money, I guess, like when I was like in high school and beyond. Before that, yes, I definitely remember there were times when, things were not going well or they were stressed and we were not able to take these family vacations that I'm talking about now. Like there was no way we were able to do that when I was a lot younger. but they've definitely done a lot better for themselves as I've gotten older, and I've seen that, and I've had, I guess, like reaped the benefits of it, you know? And so I'm going to be the first person to say that. Like, I don't want to sit here and be like, oh yeah, like I don't have any, you know, privilege in that sense, because I do, but I also want to acknowledge that it wasn't like this way my entire life. And it also wasn't like, I don't have like generational wealth. Like my grandparents or anyone else in my family does not have money. So not to say that that's like important to this context, but I always think it's important to acknowledge just like your background. And I want to kind of like put that out there. So for us as kids who were very privileged and were very blessed by my parents, it was really, really cool and special to see where my dad grew up, because it was a very tiny house. And there was like, you know, 4 people in the family. I mean, just seeing where he grew up and came from versus where he lives and where he's at now is like, I can't imagine that, because I didn't come from that beginning. That's why I kind of wanted to give you that context, is like, I didn't come from absolutely nothing. So for me, I can't appreciate it as much. But when I was able to go to Romania and see where he grew up and see where he lived and see where he came from, it made me appreciate my life so much more. And just like recognizing the fact that, you know, my parents were able to give us a much better life than they had growing up. And I think that sometimes a lot of people need that reminder, and it was really special to see. And I'm sure if you're listening and your parents came from similar backgrounds, or you came from a similar background, you kind of understand the sentiment of just like needing to see something like that, to be reminded of how lucky you are and how blessed you are, and also appreciate what you have today. So that was really, really, really special. And then after Romania, which was honestly like, it wasn't the most bougie luxurious trip or anything like that, it was just like so eye-opening and so special. We went to like the church that he went to growing up. Like it was just like really cool, and got to see people that he got to see people that he hasn't seen in like 20, 40 years, or 20 or 40 years, because the last time he was in Romania was 20 years ago. The time before that, it was another 20 years. So it's been 40 years total. And it was just really cool. Like he got together with all of his high school like best friends that still live there, and it was like cool seeing that. And so I was just like really glad that I got to, you know, be there and witness that. Also, I will say, I've noticed my Romanian needs so much work. It is so rusty. I am like a million times better at speaking Spanish than I am Romanian, and it was good for me to practice there, but like holy cow, my Romanian is bad, and I just like need to get better at it. When we were younger, I was actually a lot better at Romanian, because we had someone that lived with us that spoke Romanian, and also my grandparents who lived like really close to us that helped take care of us was also Romanian. And so Romanian was pretty much the only language I spoke when I was younger, at least like at my house. But as I've gotten older, I haven't had to speak it as much, and so it's so bad. But like Spanish, I actually speak a lot, because one, I live in Miami, so everyone here speaks Spanish, but it's also such a great place to practice. And so whenever I encounter someone that speaks Spanish, I try to practice and I try to speak with them, versus I don't encounter that many people besides my grandparents that speak Romanian. And like, I don't talk to my grandparents as much as I should to become fluent in Romanian. So it's a little rusty, I will say that. But it was still really, really good to to practice over there. Then we went to Budapest, and Budapest was so much nicer than I had anticipated. It reminded me actually a lot of New York City, and it was a lot bigger than I anticipated too. It has really beautiful historical buildings. The river is right there, which is really nice. I highly recommend going on like a boat tour if you guys go. And then just like the city itself was really good. It was also the place we had the best food in our entire trip. Like I actually thought Budapest had really amazing restaurants, and it was so like, it was just such a cool city, and I feel like it's a lot of fun. However, I don't want to stereotype, but I'm going to. And I did get DMs saying that I was not the only person that felt this way, and there are entire like Reddit forums went asking this question of like friendliest versus like unfriendliest cities in Europe, and obviously it's a generalization, but this was a common answer. I thought the people in Budapest were not very nice. Like I got very mean energy from almost every single person we interacted with besides the hotel staff. Like Uber drive, or again, they don't have Uber there. It's called Bolt. So like the Bolt drivers or the taxi drivers, the waiters at the restaurant, the hostesses at the restaurants, the people at the coffee shop, the people we just like encountered in the street, literally did not interact with one nice person there besides, again, like I said, like the receptionist at the hotel. And it was just like very strange. Like I've never been to a city where like you instantly feel the like unfriendliness or like I don't want you here. Like it was like if we would go to a restaurant, we were like, hi, like we have a reservation, whatever. It was just like, get out of my face. Like it felt so angry. Like even when we were like ordering at the restaurant, if I like asked a question about the menu, it was like, ugh. And I completely understand like being in a country and then like people don't speak your language, all of this stuff, like, or like, you know, like we never wanted to assume that anyone like spoke English. Like anytime I spoke to anyone in English, I was like, do you speak English? I think it's so rude when you are in another country and you just assume everyone speaks English. It's like, how, like, you are in their country, you either need to learn their language or you better hope that they speak some English. And we are so lucky as Americans, the fact that we can go to pretty much any country and or any major city and like people will speak English. Like that is very lucky of us. But that should not be custom, which reminds me actually of a story. So I was at the airport in Spain. We had a layover in Madrid, and the TSA lady, which I don't know what it's called there, but you know, the security at the airport was telling people to, you know, put laptops and electronics in bags and to, you know, put their backpacks in the cart and whatever. And she was saying it in Spanish because hello, we're in Madrid. Like, yeah, she's going to speak Spanish at the airport. And there was this person in front of me. I'm assuming he was American. He was speaking English and he understood what she was saying. Like he was like putting his stuff in like places and like that he was supposed to, but he, I guess, like didn't take his laptop out or something where like he didn't do something right. And she said it to him. She was like, whatever she said in Spanish. And he goes, why don't you speak English? The audacity to tell the airport security in Spain, why don't you speak English, made me want to punch him. So he's like, why don't you speak English? And she just looks at him and she goes, yo hablo español. And then tells him again. And then he goes, oh, he doesn't stop there. He goes, yeah, I could see that. Sir, what are you trying to do? Like, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to do? Like, why the heck would you assume or expect, not even assume, why would you expect someone to speak English when you are not in an English-speaking country? Like, that's just so stupid for me. Like, you could be nice and you can ask questions or you can kind of try to, like, maybe ask someone around you. Like, ask me. I was right behind him. I understood what she was saying. But the fact that he just said that, like, literally made me want to punch him. And I wish I said this to his face, but it was early in the morning. I was just like, you're in Spain. They're going to speak Spanish. Like, it was just so rude. And I'm glad she said that. And I'm glad she didn't speak English to him. But I don't even know where I was going with that story. Oh, yeah. Okay. So in Budapest. So, yeah, like, I can understand the frustration if, like, someone's speaking English to you and you, like, are like, dude, we don't even speak English in this country. Like, why are you automatically assuming that I speak English? So that's why every time I, like, would speak to someone, I'd be like, do you speak English? And 99% of the time they said yes. So that was fine. But it just, like, I felt the unfriendliness, and no other city that I've been to, honestly, like, ever have I felt that much, like, meanness coming from it. Please let me know, or if you're from there, if you've been there, like, have you felt the same way? I also had Natasha, who obviously works with us at Rella, she texted me and was like, I saw your story where you said that, and like Budapest was the only city when she was studying abroad in Europe where she felt like very uncomfortable, discriminated against, and like just people were just rude to her there. And I'm like, yeah, I just think it's like very an unfriendly place. I don't know. And obviously not everyone there. Please don't like come for me. Obviously it's not everyone. It's like when people make stereotypes about, you know, Miami being a unfriendly city, like people say people in Miami are mean, and I will say that too, you know. It's obviously not everyone, but that was just like the overall energy that I had felt. So that was Budapest, but I did love it. Like I would go back and I actually really liked it. Then we went to Vienna. Vienna was kind of the end of the trip. We only had 1.5 days there. I was very tired at that point, as I think we all were. And so Vienna was really nice, but it was kind of a sleepy city. I felt like there wasn't that much to do. There were a lot of museums, which I thought were really cool. We went to the art museum, which was awesome. And there was a lot of gardens and parks, and it was very beautiful and very clean. But I also it felt sleepy. Like things closed early. I didn't feel like there was that much to do. And so I thought it was nice, but like I don't know if it was a city I would necessarily go back to because I didn't think there was that much to do there. But I also spent 1.5 days there, so like what do I know? But that was kind of my experience with those cities and those places. And now I kind of want to go over pretty quickly just some like differences that I've seen, and I would love to know your thoughts and if this is something that you guys feel. So in terms of culture, obviously these are stereotypes. It's going to be blanket statements, but like of course I know that not everyone there is like this. I think that Europe feels very community oriented, which I really appreciate and I like. And I think the US is obviously more like individualistic and like all about you. And we're a lot more selfish in the United States. And I think there are pros and cons to both. However, I do think that Europe has more of like a community element, and people in general are willing to help, and they're kinder, and they're just willing to be more of like a good neighbor than I think in the US. It's very much like everyone to themselves, very individualized, and it's not as like helpful. And it's kind of like this TikTok that I feel like a lot of people have seen where it's like why you should ask your friends to drive you to the airport. Like asking favors and doing favors for your friends is like a sense of how we build community. And it's what makes us a society by like doing things for people. And not everything needs to be for like a profit, you know? Like it's like, oh, why would I ask my friend to drive me to the airport when like there's a company that does that and it's called Uber, you know? Like obviously Uber is great and stuff, but there's that sense of like community of like being able to drive your friend to the airport and like do a favor and not expect anything in return. And I feel like a lot of people in Europe are like that, versus in the US, it's just like, oh, well, there's a company for that. Go and hire someone for that. Like we don't ask people for favors, and we're much more like individualized and kind of selfish, versus I didn't feel that much in Europe. Also, I talk more about that in my vlog, so I highly recommend you guys watching that. I also think in Europe, people work to live. They don't live to work like they do in the United States. Like I have never seen or felt the stark difference of like hustle culture more than being there versus being here. Like again, pros and cons. I think there's a lot more upward mobility in the United States and opportunity in the United States, but I also think that there's such a gift of not being trapped in this like hustle culture mentality, and it can cause a lot of depression, anxiety. You can feel burnt out. And I saw that, and I saw the difference so much more because I was so stressed about work while I was there, and seeing the way that other people live in these cities and like interacting with the people and like talking to them about work. It's like work is not a topic of conversation. It's not something that's like number one on their mind, and it's not their sense of identity like it is, I think, here in the United States. And then also, I think in terms of like health, don't even get me started. I think the fact that like the US has so much processed shit in our food and like chemicals, and we just like pump everything with medicine, or like pump ourselves with medicine, versus in Europe, I noticed not only is the food so much cleaner, you feel so much better after eating there, but also the pharmacies there, it's a lot more like natural remedies, and like the things that are over the counter in the US are not over the counter there. Like my mom had a UTI in Europe, and it was so hard for her to find pain medicine there because the only things that they had in Europe were these like natural remedies. And while I completely agree, it was like really frustrating for her because she like just needed this pain medicine for a UTI. Like they don't sell Azo there, or AZO, however you say it. Here, it does make me feel like you're healthier overall, or you're more like holistic there. They care more about holistic health, versus in the United States, healthcare is for profit. And so we are going to be, honestly, like it's profitable to make Americans sick so that people can be on medication. And I can go on a whole rant about that. I'm not going to, but I do think that Europeans are more holistic in their health practices, versus the United States. It's like, let me just get a prescription and let me put a Band-Aid on this and let me just give a big pharmaceutical company my money. And I noticed that was a difference because like my mom was sick there, and also we would stop into pharmacies all the time to like ask for different things, and we just noticed like such a difference in it. And again, there's pros and cons to both. Like obviously my mom was like in pain and she's like, I just want Azo, you know, but then like you have to look at the other side where, okay, well, it's a carcinogen, so like that's why it's not there. And I just think that they care more about people's health, I guess, there. I could be totally wrong, but that was kind of my assumption. And then Also, in the United States, obviously, it's a place where there's like huge portions, bad food, like it just like makes you feel worse about yourself. But I did notice that I think in Europe they're more like holistically healthy, but they're not as big into fitness as the United States is. Like athleisure is not a thing. There's not that many gyms. There's not as many workout classes. People aren't like swole. Like you don't see as many like muscular people walking around as you do in the United States, which I think the United States is definitely more fitness conscious, where like we like our workout classes, we like our gyms, we pay a lot of money for it, and people really care about like building muscle here, where I don't see it as much there. And I could be totally wrong, so please let me know if you live there if that's an accurate assumption. So those were kind of like my comparisons overall. Again, I'm generalizing. I'd love to know your thoughts if you have lived in both places, what you think. Again, there's pros and cons of both. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I will say I am on track to become a European citizen in the next 2 years. It's like a really long process, but I'm trying to become a European citizen just to have an EU passport in case I do ever want to live there or move there. I would never, or I don't want to say never, but like I don't think I would ever live there permanently, but I would love to at least have the opportunity to if I ever decided that I wanted to. So just having the option is something that I would really like to have. So let me know if you guys like this episode. That was my Europe recap, but please watch the vlog so you can actually see what we did. And I dive into my thoughts a lot more on each place and each of these topics that I was talking about here. So you'll get more of it, and you'll also get to see like kind of like what we did in Europe, and it's just such a fun trip. So thank you guys so much for listening. I know this episode was kind of all over the place, but that's what I love about these solo podcasts, and I will see you guys in my next podcast. Bye, guys.